we're heading towards St. Patrick's Day. Before we do anything further, I do have to say, I just would like to welcome Grey Eagle, who, as always, especially when I'm cooking, especially when I'm in the kitchen, he's standing to my right side. So all right, so that's good. We're coming to St. Patrick's Day. So I don't know who had this brilliant idea. It might have been me. I'm not quite sure it was as brilliant an idea as I thought it was going to be. But anyway, I thought, what better for St. Patrick's Day is to make Irish stew. And then I thought, yeah, but I don't like Irish stew. Well, that's not strictly true. But anyway, this is my version of an Irish stew, which as I'm going along, I'm talking to you, I'll let you know. Before we do this, we have Chris, of course, who is doing all the technical stuff. And we have Felisa, who is behind the camera. And she's doing a little dance. Thank you, we love that. There is a stool if you want. Do you want to sit on, perch your bum on that stool, and it saves you standing? No, you. Yeah. You want it if you feel like sitting down. Anyway, and I might feel sitting down now. I might feel like sitting down in a minute. So I've got my stool behind me. So, right, all right then. Chris, do we have it? Is there anybody watching this show, or can we just go and eat?
There are people logged in, and Judith has been in the chat room.
Oh, okay, all right. So, for those of you who have the newsletter, you have the recipe in front of you. It looks like there's a lot of food here, but when I'm looking at what I've got here, not so much. So we've got the beef, we've got the flour. I put avocado oil, but honestly, you can use what you like. It doesn't have to be avocado oil. We've got some onions and garlic. Where are they? So, which I cooked prior to coming here because we don't have time to cook. So I don't know if you can see that. Felisa, can they see that? There you are. So that's the onions. Now, just a little tip. I did my impression of Julia Child the other day, or earlier today, actually, early this morning. I'm not going to do the impression for you now, but just a little tip. When you're cooking onions and garlic together, you need to cook the onions first, lightly cook the onions, and then at some point, once the onions have been cooked, you throw in the garlic. If you throw it all in together, you're likely to get a sticky mess. The garlic, I don't know if you've ever noticed when you're peeling garlic and chopping garlic, but it gets all sticky on your fingers. And this is what happens if you just put it in with the onions. It'll clump. It'll go all sticky together in with the onions, and you don't get a thorough mix of flavor. So you cook your onions first, and then once your onions are practically finished, you throw in the garlic for another minute or so. I finely diced the garlic, and I just chopped the onions because I felt like it. I just chopped them. Anyway, any which way. It's a good thing you weren't watching me yesterday when I was chopping the onions, or was it this morning I was chopping the onions? It doesn't matter. So I've got this rice, nice jasmine rice that we're going to have with this delicious meal in a little bit. But so here are the onions, and actually what I'm going to do, Chris brought her crockpot, slow cooker even. I'm going to get that here. And just another little tip for you. So this is Chris's nice pot. Another tip for you, when you're using a slow cooker, you really need to have something in it, even if it's only a few 3 or 4 ounces of water or liquid of some kind when you put it on, because if you start the cooker up and you put it on and there's nothing in it, it could actually crack, because these things are, whatever they are, porcelain or something, and you don't want the bottom of the pot or the outside of the pot to crack. So I've prepared the onions. 1 second. I don't want to get greasy hands here. So prepared the onions and the garlic, which I'm now going to throw in. See, delicately throw in. I'm going to delicately throw them into the pot. All right. So at any time now, I could actually put this pot in because there's something in there. All right. Now, also to save a little bit of time, if you look at your recipe, and it does describe to you what you need to do, you put some, this is how I do it. I put my flour in a bag and I season it really well with salt and pepper, or whatever else you want to season it with. You could put, what are you saying to me?
I need to. I can't see it. I can't see it on the
Oh, well, I'll show it in a minute then.
Okay.
I'm going to take a piece of meat out. That's about the size of the meat that you're looking to. It's about 1 inch cubes. So here they are. I put the flour in a bag. I rinsed and drained thoroughly the meat, but I've also dried it because we're going to cook this meat in a minute. And when you're cooking, we're browning off. What we're trying to do is we're going to try and seal all the juices into the meat. So you here's the bag, you toss it around, make sure that the meat is really well covered, and that's that. And then I'm going to put that in a strainer, tip the flour out, and I'm going to cook the meat, and I'll show you how we're going to cook the meat. If you are making an Irish stew, and I did put some vegetables in there. Now, a really true Irish stew has potatoes, because as we all know, the Irish love potatoes. I must be part Irish because I love potatoes as well. In any form you can give me potatoes, I will eat them. So if you are making a true Irish stew, a true Irish stew is root vegetables, and so carrots and parsnips and potatoes, anything that sort of grows in the ground, puts roots into the ground. And so you could also have swede. I don't know if you guys know do you know what a swede is? Do you call it swede in this country? I think there's the German name. What's that German name for a swede, Chris? Do you know what that is? I don't know quite what it is, but anyway. So are you coming in? Are you going to say something to me?
I just know the Miss Swedes.
Okay, all right. So that's good then. So carrots, swedes, parsnips, and potatoes. And you would throw all of this. You would do exactly what we're doing now, but you would throw in roughly chopped, not too small, but not too big. I know that sounds about 2 inch, probably two inch chunks of your vegetables, and you would throw all of those in as well. I'm going to now, I don't know if you'll be able to see me, but I'm going to the sink and I'm going to get rid of the flour because I want to get rid of as much flour out of this meat as possible. So I'm going to put it into my colander. So let's just going to make sure the colander is nice and dry. Can you see what I'm doing here? Then I'm going to throw everything in there, out it all comes, and I'm going to give it all a really, 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 really good shake. But now, you don't want to get rid of all the flour because, you know, the flour is going to be what thickens the stew. So, I'm going to just rinse that out before it sticks. I bet you've never seen a cooking show like mine before. We're just winging it, people. We are winging it. So put the onions in. You can see that quite clearly, right? You can see most of the flour is, I shook most of the flour off. I'm going to throw that in as well. Now, I'm also going to throw in some there's a little bit of basil in here. I'm going to throw that in. I know it's not in the recipe, but you can do what you like, and this is the fun of cooking. And those of you who have my cookbook will understand. In all of the notes, I say Do what you like, improvise. What I wouldn't do with an Irish stew, and I know a lot of people do, an Irish stew does not need beans or legumes, or some people even put leafy vegetables in. Remember, a true Irish stew is root vegetables only. I'm mixing this all together. Now, weirdly, yes, weirdly, a nice balsamic vinegar. I find that balsamic vinegar helps to tenderize the meat. This is why I don't put too much in. Can't remember what I put in the recipe, maybe 2 ounces or something. I'm going to eyeball it. I'm not going to put too much in. We don't want it to taste too vinegary after all. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. Of course, the vinegar's not coming out. I'll show you in a minute. I'll lift it up and show you in a minute. So roughly, let me see if I can show you that. Can you get that? About, you know, 1 ounce to 2 ounce liquid ounces, obviously. Give it all a good stir up. And then corn flour. Now, if you want to, you can use, which I sometimes do, I use McCormack's stroganoff mix. The thing about McCormack's and other mixes, or bought mixes, packet mixes, the thing about those is that you know, when you're mixing and making sauces yourself, you look at the recipe and it's some of this and a bit of that and so on and so forth, and you, before you know it, you've got your cupboards are full of stuff that you might only use once or twice or 3 times a year. The thing about packet mixes is it's all in there. They've got it all in there, ready for you in one mix. As you please yourself. Here we have my little thing is, and I've got, it's just like, maybe I'll put a little bit more water in there. So I mixed my corn flour. Then I put parsley and basil or basil, however you want to say it. I'm British, we say basil. And, you know, just put that in there as well and mix it all up. So I've put in here a pint, something, is that a pint? Something like that. Roughly 8, no, it isn't, it's 8 ounces, there you are. So 8 ounces is a half a pint. 16 ounces is a pint. Do you remember when we used to have to learn that in school? And I'm going to pour this all over the top, right in there. Make sure we've got every little drop out, and we're going to stir it around. Gosh, this looks so good. So, Chris, do we have any questions so far?
We don't have any questions, but Healing is Everything says, good morning. My name is Sarah. I have been watching
Hello, Sarah.
you since 2016. Just wanted to
Well,
let you know how amazing you are, and I'm so glad to see you shining.
thank you, darling. I appreciate it. But now you've mentioned healing, you see, here's the thing when you're cooking, because Gregor is standing behind me as I'm talking to all of you. I'm also talking to him. I'm saying to him, did I miss anything? Have I forgotten something? Oh, thank you. Right, I have forgotten something because, as always with my cooking shows, usually I'll be drinking a glass of sherry, but for some weird and unaccountable reason, my favourite sherry, which is Harvey's Bristol Cream Sherry, the best in the world as far as I'm concerned, I went to my cupboards and it's empty. I think I've had a little gremlin going into my cupboards. Of course, my daughter's been staying with me, and then my friend Karen was staying with me. You never know who's about, you know, and you never know what they're going in there to find when you're in bed asleep or just not keeping an eye on things. So somebody disappeared my Harvey's Bristol Cream. So I'm going to say always, I like to have a drink of something. So I've got a rum and coke here. So cheers. I'll give you a really good English cheers. Are you ready for this? So here we go with my rum and coke. I should have put it out there. You should be having a drink while you're listening and doing this. Maybe some of you have. Are you ready for this? Cheers. So here's to you and here's to me. And may we never disagree, but if we do, the hell with you and here's to me. Did you like that? So I don't really mean the hell with you, the heck with you. I should have said the heck with you. But anyway, there we are. So now Rachel is saying, I didn't have a drink. I didn't do that. That was what was missing. So cheers to all of you. Oh, lovely. Now, okay, that's really good. So now, I don't know, did I show it to you? Mix it all together. Let's see if I can get a spoonful of this good stuff. Sort of, and can you see that? So that's all mixed together, all nicely gone in together. A few little herbs and spices that, you know, put in there what you like. If you do put leafy greens in there, you will ruin it. If you put beans in there, yeah, well, it won't be an Irish stew anymore. Having said that, this isn't really an Irish stew. This is a rosemary stew, so I don't know what to tell you. So here we go, and now I'm going to put all of this in Chris's fancy slow cooker. Sorry, I'm laughing. I'm going to put this all in Chris's fancy slow cooker, and we're going to cook it for 6 hours, maybe, in the slow cooker. If you have an Instapot, now I thought about doing it in my Instapot, but my Instapot is quite small. It's an individual one, so it's not big enough for all of this stuff. I'm thinking I really need to get a bigger Instapot. Now, let me explain something to those of you who don't know too much about Instapots, which I didn't. I've been experimenting. But an Instapot is the exact same thing that my mother used to have, a great big giant pot with a big heavy lid and a little spout at the top to let the steam out. An Instapot is actually a pressure cooker. So, but it's all nice and neat and small and everything, and everybody thinks it's the new and the latest thing. Well, it is the new and the latest thing, but it's just a more compact version of the version that my mother used to do. Every winter, the pressure cooker was on. We'd have leftover, you know, whatever it was, meat from Sunday. So sometimes you'd throw in some other things. We'd have all sorts of vegetables, and that stew that she made, it did have all of the root vegetables in. And that stew that she made, she would just keep it going and keep adding stuff and adding stuff. And I know people say you shouldn't cook cooked meat with raw meat. My mother didn't care. It all went into the pot. And let me tell you, it was really, really good. On a cold winter's day, you'd come in and you'd smell, oh, that lovely sort of meaty smell. So an Instapot is a pressure cooker, and it will work in a quarter of the time that a slow cooker does. There's something to be said, though, for slow cooking, because when you know, cook it and it's tenderized, it's delicious. But there's also something to be said for the Instapot, because it's just as delicious. I've tried it both ways, just as delicious in a quarter of the time. So your choice. Right, so I'm now going to put it in the pot, in, oh gosh, Chris's pot. And I've no idea how to turn it on, but that's not my problem, is it? Do I have to, I guess I have to seal the, Chris's is different than mine, so I don't know if I'm not going to mess with that. She can come and do that in a minute. And I'm going to plug it in. There we go. And bingo, there is your, wait a minute, hold on. Not easy when you've got a bad back. There is your Irish stew. Now it happens, it just so happens that a couple of days ago I made another one. I mean, you know, so that we could show you what it looks like, and maybe Felicia and Chris can come and have a little taste, and we'll see what it tastes like. If it tastes awful, they're not allowed to say. They're supposed to say, oh, yummy, this is so good, I've never had anything like it. But let's keep it real. If you don't like it and you don't want to eat it, just say so, because I'll eat it. And they are going to eat it because it's our lunch. This afternoon we're going to be making oranges. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm just going to going to, now here I have to go with my stew is some jasmine rice. Okay, so it's enough for 3 of us in there, I hope. If not, we've got more. I cooked the rice yesterday. I rinsed it in cold water. I think you need to rinse it at least twice to get the sticky out of it. But if you don't mind the sticky, that's also good. I'm going to put this in the microwave. But before I do that, let me go to my fridge. Here we go. I'm going to take out a really good chunk of butter. Yes, I know. My daughter tells me I shouldn't eat it, but then I read butter's really good for you. And anyway, who knows? I'm going to put a nice chunk of butter in this rice. I don't know if they like it. I didn't ask them. This is the way I make rice. So it's jasmine rice. I do 1 part rice and 2 parts water. So that's that. So I think I made 16 ounces. I just put it in a jug, fill the jug up with the rice, throw it in the pan. Then I fill the jug up twice more with water, throw it in. Then I leave it, cook it up, let it nicely simmer until most of the water's gone. And then I just put a tight lid on it and push it on, take it off the heat, push it onto the back of the stove and just leave it. And what it does is, I mean, some of you have rice cookers which steams the rice. What this does, the way I'm doing it, is it just steams the rice and makes a perfect cooked rice. So I'm going to put this in the microwave, and then I'm going to take a look at the stew that I made yesterday and show you what it looks like. Okay, 1 second here. So, okay. All right, in the microwave it goes. Put my little lid on the top. I'm going to put it for 3 minutes. There we go. So this is the perfect time, Chris. Does anybody have any questions about what we're doing right now, or, you know, what we're making, or any questions about any of it at all?
So Judith was asking about Swedes, and I did find out that a Swede is like a rutabaga or a yellow
That's a
turnip.
rutabaga. A turnip or a rutabaga is the same thing. It's all the same thing. They're so hard to peel and they're so hard to cut, but the flavor is amazing. So if you wanted to put a Swede or rutabaga, whatever it is you call it, in there, basically we would use parsnips, carrots, Swede, and maybe not Swede, depends, but definitely parsnips and carrots. I love parsnips. They're one of my favorite vegetables. And potatoes, of course. And that is how we would make our delicious Irish stew. Anybody else got a question?
No one else has a question. We have a lot of eyes on what you're doing, but no questions in the chat.
Really? A lot of eyes. Right. While we're waiting for the rice to cook, I did mention marmalade. And Chris and Felicia and I, this afternoon, after we've had our lunch, which we're going to have as soon as the show is over, we're only half an hour. See, this is what happens. I got ahead of myself. I thought I'll cook the onions and the garlic, and then I'm ready with that. And then I thought, no, I'll put the meat in the flour, and then I'm ready with that. And I've got nothing to do now. So why not talk about the marmalade? Now, weirdly, I'm not allowed to eat oranges. They're very, very bad for me, for my kidney and everything. Everybody thinks that vitamin C and oranges have got to be healthy for you, have got to be good for you. I can eat any other. I can eat the little small Zatzumas. I can eat the clementines. I can eat all of those, but oranges are a big no-no for me. So here I am this afternoon. I'm going to be making orange marmalade, but I'm going to be making my orange marmalade. So I'm going to give you the ingredients you've got a pen and paper, so that at some point in the future you can make it with me. Wouldn't that be fun? If you want to, you could always come and stand in my kitchen with me. We could work together, make it together. But I'm going to show you from my type of marmalade. I know people make lots of different marmalades, but for me, years and years ago, it's been years since I've made marmalade, years. I'm hoping I remember how to do it. So for me, the only way for a really good, I like a chunky marmalade. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. For me, I only like to use Seville oranges from Spain, from Seville in Spain. I think they might grow them in Florida. For some reason, I don't know how. I've been searching for about 2 or 3 years now, looking for Seville oranges in this area. Can never find them. And then how did you find these Seville oranges, Chris? Why don't you tell us? While I'm getting the oranges out, why don't you tell us?
So interesting. When you started talking about that you loved a specific marmalade on your duck, then I began searching along with you. And the thing about Florida is you cannot import other citrus into
Can you
Florida.
talk a little bit louder because I can't hear you? The thing about what?
The interesting thing about you cannot import other citrus.
Oh, okay.
So somehow, some way, I found an organic small farm in the, let's call it central north of Florida, who had the Seville oranges, and of all places through Etsy, ETSY.
Wow. Okay. Well, I thought Etsy was clothes and shoes and jewelry and stuff like that. But anyway, so Chris found this little farm. She was obviously determined in the north of Florida. I'm sure that if you live in other places that don't have the restrictions that Florida has for importing stuff like that, they just look like a regular orange, right? I mean, there's nothing fancy or different. Would you know a Seville orange from a whatever else?
Mm-mm.
No. So, however, the thing about these Seville oranges is, unlike most oranges, you can go to the tree, you can pick it off, you can pick the peel apart, and you can eat them, and they're delicious and they're juicy and they're fabulous. The thing about these babies is try eating them off the tree. Oh, they are so bitter. Really, really have a very, very bitter taste to them, which makes for a great marmalade. So, in my recipe, I have an old recipe book and it's full of scribbled notes. And so I came to look for the marmalade that I used to make, and there it is in my own handwriting, a completely different recipe than the one they gave you in the book. But this is tried and true and tested by me over quite a few years. I made orange marmalade for many years. So basically, if I can remember, let me see if I can remember the ingredients. The ingredients are, 2.5 pounds of Seville oranges, yum, 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 7 pints, that's 7 times 16 water, 7 pints of water, 6 pounds of sugar, and yes, and the weirdest thing ever, and I don't know of anybody else who uses black, we know it, I always know it from my father. We used to get black treacle, which is very much a molasses thing. It's like molasses, a little bit thicker than molasses, but it's so delicious, can eat it off the spoon. But anyway, and I'm trying to think, so that's very simple. That's, and a lemon. 2.5 pounds of oranges, 1 lemon. It's a good thing I've got Grey Eagle whispering in my ear, otherwise I'd forgotten the lemon. 1 lemon, 7 pints, which is 7 times 16 pints of water, 6 pounds of sugar and a good tablespoon, if not 2, of the molasses. Now, this marmalade will be chunky. In other words, the peel will be sort of nice and chunky. It'll be soft, but I like my marmalade very chunky. And it will be dark. It will be a dark, sort of very rich, flavorful, which is what the molasses does. I find it's sort of the black treacle gives it a much deeper flavor. As I've just said, I can't eat oranges, but when I'm making duck, I'm always searching around, looking for the chunkiest, the darkest, the thickest marmalade, which is nigh on impossible unless you make it yourself. But you can find it. I can remember once finding a jar and going through the airport and stupidly didn't put it in my suitcase, and the guy took one look at it and he said, "You can't bring that through." And I often wondered, did he just put it in his pocket and take it home with him? And anyway, he stole my marmalade. Because I like it when I'm making duck à l'orange. I like to make a nice roast duck. Sometimes I make just the duck breast, but I like to make a roast duck, and always with the roast duck, I make my special sauce, which requires dark, chunky marmalade. So that's why we're making it today, so that I can make my delicious duck, which you can spoon right out of the jar and eat it. And sometimes I think when people are coming, I think, now I've made enough sauce, surely, and then I see it and it's just going, gone. Because you don't only have to eat it with duck, you can eat it on its own, or you can put it on a pudding. You can do anything you like with it, really. I'm going to put those there. I'm going to bring out my rice. Let's have a look at that. Okay. So let's see. Oh, yummy in my tummy. And yes, the butter melted. So let's shut that off. My favourite part is coming up, everyone. So get ready. So I need a fork. Do I not have a fork? Well, I'll just use this spoon. I'm going to stir the butter in. Does that look good or what? Oh, gosh, it smells good. Buttery rice. You cannot beat it. Buttery rice. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to lift it and show it to you. And there it is. I put all that butter in, you saw, and I've just stirred it all up. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off it, but maybe you can or not. But lovely. And that's sort of plain and simple. A little bit of salt in there when I'm cooking with it. And so now, this is my favorite part of a cooking show. I always love it when I'm watching cooking shows, and then the person says, "And now here is one I made yesterday," or "Here is one I made earlier." So, are you ready? Here is one I made earlier, which was actually yesterday, or even the day before. Let's see. I'm going to need a cloth with this. Okay, so. Okay, oops. Oh, lifting it out. I know it looks just like Chris's crockpot, but it isn't. It's mine. Let's do that one. So I'm going to unplug it. We don't need it on anymore. Okay, and I'm going to give it a good stir. Yes. Oh yes. Now, as all good cooks do, I'm going to lift it. It's a little hot. You see that?
Mm.
Does it look good? Mm. Now imagine that full of carrots and potatoes and parsnips. It's good. And if you had it with all of those vegetables in it, what I would advise is just stick it in a bowl with a spoon and just chunk of bread, and that's how we would eat it in England. Just a nice big crusty chunk of bread, preferably bread that you've made yourself. I'll go out a bit of meat here. Let's have a look here. There we go. So, can you see this? I think it's really good. I'm going to put it back in though because I want it to heat up a little bit more, and we do have another 20 minutes anyway before we take a break before we finish. Sorry, I'm talking with my mouth full. Disgusting habit. All right, here you go. So I'm putting that back in, putting the lid on. Stupidly, I unplugged it, but not such a big deal. So here we go. And okay. So what I would do is, I could do it. I could show you, but I don't know. Maybe I'll do it. Okay. Just to present it properly. I'm going to pretend I'm a professional. I don't know what I'm professional at, but I'm going to pretend. So you take the jasmine. Okay, you take some rice, and what I do is to make a little dent like that in the rice. You can actually just put a whole load of rice on it if you want, but I'm not a great big rice lover, so and I'm going to and there you have it. Rosemary's Irish stew, which is not really, just give me a second and I'm going to. Rosemary's Irish stew, which is not really an Irish stew, it's a rosemary stew, but see, and that's it. And you present it now, you can have it with mashed potatoes, you can have it with a crusty chunk of bread and dip it in and get all that gravy in there. So it's just, the meat is so nice and so tender and so delicious. And the balsamic vinegar for me is what makes it. I can remember my daughter made this stew the first time she made it and I wasn't there. She said, Mum, she said, I've done it and it doesn't taste like yours. And I said, well, did you put a little balsamic vinegar in? And she sort of looked, she said, balsamic vinegar. And I said, you did, you forgot, didn't you? You didn't put it in, did you? And she said, no, but she remembers and now she does it. Doesn't have to be an expensive balsamic, just a nice balsamic vinegar. Make sure, because it really does make all the difference in the world. I think we're done, and I think we're done for the day. I don't know who's going to have this. I think me. Maybe I'll eat this and pop it in the microwave for a minute because it's not quite hot enough for me yet. But anyway, we're going to have a really delicious lunch. Chris, anybody want to say anything before we clear off?
Well, 2 questions.
Okay.
In the crock pot, do you put it on low or do you put it on high?
Okay. Crock pot meaning slow cooker.
Yes.
Slow cooker. The slow cooker, I put it on high, and I put it on for. It comes on my slow cooker comes on automatically for 6 hours.
That was the second question.
So you taste it. If it's not quite, if you've got maybe you didn't get a good kind of meat. I like to use chuck because I think it's nice and tender. But sometimes you go into a supermarket and they just call it stew beef or stewing beef. So depending on the quality of your meat, if you taste it, that's when you put a little extra seasoning in. That's when you put in, a little bit more salt or pepper or what have you. If it's not got quite enough liquid in it, you would add a little liquid to it. You can use vegetable stock or you can use water. I just use water because, the meat and everything brings me up a really nice stock. If it's not quite cooked, just leave it leave it for another couple of hours and then try it again. If you can make this in the morning, right, for dinner in the evening, so you would cook it, you make sure it's cooked through, and then you can just put it on low, and it'll just keep it on low. And then when all the family come pouring into the house for dinner, it's there, it's ready. Or if you're a person who goes to work, you could do this the night before, make all the preparation the night before, which I did actually. And then, just before you go to work, you bung it all into your, you place it all in your, bung it in makes it, but you bung it all in, right? I mean, why wouldn't we bung it all? You throw it into your slow cooker or whatever, and you turn it on and you leave it for work and just leave it. And if you're not sure about leaving it on high, leave it on low. If you're out all day, just leave it on low. And then when you come in, put it back. I almost said bung it back up again. But anyway, you can then put it back up for, whatever, for an hour or two. So depending on when you make it, how long before you eat it, you make it. But it needs, I would say, in the slow cooker, it needs at least 6-7 hours, depending on the quality of the beef that you're using. I'm going to remind you again, the Instapot, they come in different sizes. I have used them. I have to tell you that I obviously did not pay attention to the instructions, and the first thing I made in there just was so burned on the bottom. It took me ages to clean it off. Of course, it was inedible, and I'm thinking, I've done something wrong with this. And I couldn't tell you what was wrong. I think it was probably because I didn't have enough liquid in there or something. I don't know. But then I roll my sleeves up, learned how to do it properly, and I love it. So if I'm just making a meal for, say, one or two, I only have a small Instapot. So, I would definitely use that as opposed to using the slow cooker, because it cuts out the time, and it just cuts out all of the waiting time. But so whatever it is you want to do. And also there is another way, because when I was growing up, we did not have slow cookers. We had a pressure cooker, but it was a big giant size thing. We didn't have Instapots. We didn't have anything like that at all. So you know what we did? We actually put it in a casserole dish, and we put the lid on the casserole dish, and we put it in the oven, and we put it in the oven for about on I don't know, gas 4 or electric would be 6 or something. 300 or something. You cook it nice and slow for the day, and then turn it up when you just an hour before you're ready to eat it. Turn the heat up, and off you go. So you don't have to have all this fancy equipment. All you need really is a casserole dish and with a lid, and the lid needs to fit tight on it so the steam doesn't come out, because when the steam comes out, you're losing liquid in your pot. So make sure your lid is nice and tight. I think we've done our St. Patrick's Day thing. I think we've had enough of St. Patrick's Day now. Well, it isn't quite St. Patrick's Day yet, so I'm going to wish you all a very, very happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope you make the stew. Hope you try it out. Hope you like it. Remember to taste it. Once it's cooking and it's, and you can taste it, remember, because I might say to you a teaspoon of salt, and you might prefer 2 teaspoons, or I might say, 1 ounce of the vinegar or 2 ounces of the vinegar. You might think, no, but I like a little bit more because I like a little more of that taste. Experiment. I think the fun with cooking, and I know that some people, in fact, many of the people I know, most of the people I know, they'll take a recipe and they'll stick like glue to it. They'll just, they'll absolutely, I can't do it without a recipe. No. I have to know exactly what the ingredients are. And when I look at a recipe, somebody gives me a recipe, I must be such an egotistical person in some ways, because I'll look at a recipe and think, now, what can I do to tweak it? What can I do to make it better? How do I make it different? As I've said, I have this book. I've had it for, I don't know, at least 100 years. I have my special recipe book, which gives the marmalade. And then I have that recipe, and then I write my own recipe next to it, which has got nothing to do with the recipe in the book. It's completely different amounts, and also the added treacle. So don't be afraid to experiment. If you're experimenting, the rule is put a little in. Don't put a great lot in. Put a little in at a time. Taste it. Because you can always put more in, but you can never take it out. So just remember that. But have fun with it and just enjoy cooking as I do. We are going to have some lunch and we're going to actually then make some marmalade. I don't know if we're going to film this marmalade making or whether we're going to, because I froze some of the oranges. Did you know that you can freeze citrus? Did you know that? You can freeze lemons, you can freeze oranges, you can freeze, well, any citrus fruit, you can freeze limes. And I'm thinking, all the times in the past that I've come to my drawer and seen a dried up lemon or a dried up lime, I'm thinking, I could have frozen that. They freeze fabulously. You need to give them time to thaw out. But also the good thing about freezing fruit, freezing citrus fruit, is if you want to make a zest it while it's still frozen. It's great. It zests so easily while it's still frozen. Anyway, we'll talk more about that in our marmalade making. We're going to be doing another cooking. I don't know what we're doing we're going to do every 3 months. We're going to do a cooking show. I hope you will join me again. I hope you make this fabulous stew, which I like. And if you're experimenting or you want to try something else and put something else in it, no leafy stuff, remember, then I want to know if it's good. I want to know about it. So email me, let me know your thoughts on my stew. Let me know your thoughts on, how you're managing or what else you've come up with. Remember, experiment, but add a little at a time. You can always put more in, but you can never take it out. So from Grey Eagle and I today, from Chris and from Felisa, we're going to now have some delicious lunch and then we're going to be orange making. We hope you've enjoyed the show today. If you did, why don't you leave us a review? Can you leave us a review? I'm not even sure you can. Let us know anyway. Email us or go on YouTube or whatever it is to see all of this. And just let us know how you're finding it. And just have fun in the kitchen. So until I see you again, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. And until I see you again, which is probably going to be next Thursday, I'll be in New York City. I'm going to see my grandson. He's playing at Carnegie Hall. He's the most amazing little boy ever. And anyway, until I see you again, please, everybody, have a very blessed rest of your weekend. Have a very blessed Sunday, everybody. And I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye now.